Hey there guys, Master64, and today we are going to be continuing to learn more stuff through our box map. So we're going to open up the map. We can do that by clicking right here. Pull up all this. Here is the original map. Open this, and boom, there we are. We are now in the box map. So what are we going to be doing today? Well, today we are going to be adding more rooms / doorways, and we're also going to be messing around with some colored lights, because why not? Colored lights are really cool, and if you don't know how to color your lights properly, your level is probably not going to look as flashy as it could be, because this engine supports pretty decent colored lights. So anyway, as you see, we already have a box over here. Let me just rebuild that. So as you remember, you right click over here, you get this entire thing right here. And in this case, we have our room set in a 1024 by 1024 by 1024. We do that, then we click build. You'll notice that nothing changed, but it would have if it would have changed. But because I entered in the exact dimensions, it didn't look like it changed it when it actually did. Right, and I just now realized that my grid is not proper, so I'm just gonna do that. So let's just check. That's pretty decent. This is going to be a pretty big doorway, so this will be all fine. So now that we have our box where we want it to be, we simply click subtract. As you can see, it subtracted another room out of the void. Now it actually didn't grab our texture. If you come over here and click on in use, this will show you every single texture that is currently in the map. This is a very helpful method of finding textures that you have used and ones that you haven't. So yeah, I'm going to do that, click, and there we go. We now have a second box with the exact same textures, but the lighting is still not there. So in order to do that, we're going to come over here and we are going to Control-Alt-Click right here. So we can select all of this. And you'll notice that it selected Shrek and the player star as well. So I'm just going to deselect those by control clicking on them. And then I'm going to do Shift D, which duplicates stuff. I'm going to move it right here. And as you can see, we have now moved our lights. All right, so now we actually need to make the doorway itself. So we want the width to be... So let's just do... we'll do 256 on that as well. So we're going to simply select this. We could select this from here, or we could select it from here, or here, or here. You want to be using all 4 of your viewports if possible, but for a level as basic as this right now, we really don't need to mess with that. But in later tutorials, we will be using that. All right, so let's just drag it down. Here's another way to drag it down. My personal favorite is just using this viewport over here. It's a very easy way to line up everything. Okay, I did not make that wide enough, so we're going to have to adjust that. And by that point, I guess that'll work. So just make sure that it is fully connecting to both sides. Make sure you have a grid lock just to make sure that everything is properly connected. And by this point, you're going to want to click subtract. And if you have done everything correctly up to this point, you should have a doorway, and there shouldn't be any sort of issue with it not looking like a doorway. AKA maybe you didn't set up the grid properly, and because of that it caused basically 2-dimensional wall to appear. That kind of stuff can happen if you're not careful, but that's just why when you're building your BSP, which is all of this right here, when you're building all of that, you need to make sure that you build it all within the grid. When it comes to other stuff in the editor, you probably won't be needing a grid, hardly. Here's a helpful tip. If you want to get rid of this, simply press B, and it just turns invisible. Now, you can still see it is selected, but if I were to click off of that, as you can see, it doesn't even look like it's even there anymore. It will look like it's still there in these, but if you were to press B in any of these, it toggles them off. All right, now let's build all and see what the level looks like. So as you can see, this really does not look that great. So what do you say we add a colored light under here to signify that you're crossing rooms? Because why the frick not? Doesn't sound like a great idea. Okay, good. So let's do that. So we're going to come over to the near center, right click, and add light. Now we have a light. We can just move this up. As you guys remember before, you can't move the light up too much. Just move it up to the point where it looks natural. AKA the ceiling brightness blends in with the wall brightness right around this area. But you're probably asking me, how do you make it colored? Well, click over here, light properties, as I've already shown you. And you open up these 2 things. As you can see, we have our light brightness, saturation. You also have the light hue, which I didn't talk about last time. But this right here is going to be our key to changing the color. So the first thing you're going to want to do the saturation is by default max to 255. What this does is it makes the light completely white. So we're going to want to turn this down just a little bit. So we want like something like, I don't know, maybe like a green or a blue light. Let's go with the blue light because I think a blue light will look pretty cool and it'll probably complement the doorway pretty well. Set it just somewhere around 100 maybe. As you can see, it defaults to a red, which is not really what we're looking for. So we're going to use the hue. You can use the slider, but it's not really that recommended in my opinion. So I just simply memorize where all the numbers are and I'll just be like, maybe like 150 will be close. That's actually pretty good. Why did I add a slash in there? I don't know. About 160. Yeah, 160 is looking way better. Look at that. Look how cool that looks. Now, something you'll notice is that light kind of leaks into all the other rooms, which I don't particularly want. So I'm going to enable radii view again. And now you can see the radius of the light. So we want to make this radius somewhat small. Let's make this like a radius of 4. Okay, that's not big enough. Radius of 8, I think, with brightness of like 256. The problem with this is that it's too easy to tell where it is. So we need to increase the radius just a little bit. Yeah, look at that. Look at how cool that looks. Anyway, this same principle applies when you're putting down any sort of light. Generally, if you're not using colored lights in your level, it's just not going to look that great. So make sure that you do that. Please do not just resort to using white unless you absolutely have to, or it is going to make your level look better. All right, so now we have the light in here. And by this point, I believe we are basically finished. So let's compile the level. We're going to build lighting. Make sure everything looks correct. That looks a whole lot better with a build. As you can see right here, it added shading to the edges and whatnot, so it really makes blending look way better. By this point, we're going to want to save the map. Now you'll notice that this time it didn't pull up a menu, and that's because when you save a map a second time, it doesn't need to tell you where it's saving, unless you do file and save as, then it'll show you it. So now I'm going to go back to my Unreal Engine 2 directory, and then I'm going to move it to my Shrek 2 directory. I've already shown you how to do this in the other tutorials, so if you haven't already watched that, make sure you watch that. You should be watching these in order anyway. You delete your original map, and then you replace it with the other one, and boom, and you can't see what I'm doing, but who cares? So funny story, I accidentally messed up my audio, so you're listening to a voiceover and not the actual live audio, because apparently I don't know how to make videos. So as you see, we're just going to go into the Shrek 2 game, and then we're going to open up YouTube Box. And here we are. As you can see, the lighting is all correct and whatnot. You can see there's a doorway. We got the other room. We're able to properly walk through them and not just get blocked by something for no reason. As you can see, the colored lighting is working perfectly fine. But yeah, anyway guys, see ya!